All right, today we're jumping into a really interesting topic at the intersection of faith and fashion, you could say. We're looking at gold, silk, and the Quran. Let's get right into it.
So let's start with the big question right up front. Are gold and silk actually forbidden for men in the Quran? Now, this is a pretty common belief, right? So we're going to dig in and see what the scripture actually has to say about it.
Okay, so first things first, let's set the stage here. For a lot of people in Muslim communities, it's pretty much a given. The common understanding is that, yep, Islam says no gold jewelry and no silk clothes for men. It's often presented as a really straightforward black and white rule.
But here's where it gets interesting. This is the core argument from our source material by Joseph A. Islam. He makes a really bold claim. He says that this widely held view, well, it's just not supported by the Quran. At all. Now that creates a pretty fascinating tension, and we're definitely going to unpack that.
Okay, so if the argument is that the Quran doesn't back up this ban, the next logical question is, well, what does it say about clothing? Let's take a look.
The source material points us to a really key verse, 7:26. And right away, it lays out two main jobs for clothing. First, pretty obvious, right? To cover your shame, your private areas. But the second one is just as important, to be an adornment for you.
And this is where we need to look a little closer at the original Arabic words, which is super insightful. You've got libasan, which means clothing. Sawatikum, that's your shame or private parts. And then there's this really crucial word, risha, which means adornment. And our source really hones in on that last one.
And check this out, because the word risha isn't just some basic term for decoration. If you look at a classical Arabic lexicon, like the famous one by Edward Lane, risha means fine clothing, ornament, beauty. Its root actually comes from the beauty of a bird's feathers. So we're not just talking about function here. The Quran is explicitly saying that clothing is also for beauty, for elegance. So let's break down what the source is telling us we can take away from this verse. 1. Clothing comes from God to cover us. 2. It also comes from God to beautify us. 3. The best kind of clothing is righteousness. That's a spiritual point. But 4, and this is the big one, there are no prohibitions here on the type of clothing, on the materials you can use.
And it doesn't stop there. Just a little further on, in verse 732, the Quran asks this really powerful, challenging question. It basically says, hey, who are you to forbid the zinata, the beautiful adornment that God himself created for his servants? See? It's framing adornment as a good thing, a provision from God, not something to avoid. And this brings us to a really serious point in the source's argument. It's not just that the Quran is silent on a ban. It's that it actually has some pretty strong warnings for people who try to add new rules that God didn't make.
And get this, the source points out that one of these warnings, in verse 66:1, is aimed directly at the prophet himself. It asks him point blank, "O prophet, why do you ban what God has made lawful for you?" I mean, if the warning applies even to the prophet, that just shows you how serious this principle is.
And it's not just for the prophet either. That warning extends to everyone. Verse 116 basically says, don't just go around with your own mouth saying, this is allowed and this is forbidden. Because when you do that, you're essentially making up lies about God.
And then there's this passage, which is probably the most intense warning of them all. The source highlights verses 69:44 through 48, and it is just stark. It talks about the immense gravity of inventing sayings in God's name, saying that if even the messenger did that, he would cut off the artery of his heart. I mean, it doesn't get much more serious than that.
So, okay, after laying all of that out, the verses about adornment, the serious warnings against making things up, the author gets to the million-dollar question. If this ban on gold and silk for men isn't in the Quran, then where on earth did it come from?
Yeah, let's just let that sink in for a second, right? If everything we've seen from the scripture is true, then finding the real origin of this belief is, well, it's kind of a big deal.
And the answer, according to the source material, is pretty straightforward. It comes from Islamic secondary sources. Okay, so what exactly does that mean? While the article explains that these are things like alleged sayings of the prophet and the opinions and interpretations of scholars who came later. But here's the kicker, and the source makes a big deal about this. These secondary sources, they don't all agree with each other. In fact, you can find narratives within these very same collections that actually support the idea that there isn't a prohibition.
So to wrap things up, the source doesn't just leave it there. It leaves us with a couple of really powerful, lingering questions that poke holes in the common logic used to defend the ban.
You often hear that the ban is about avoiding luxury, right? But the author makes this really sharp point. Okay, if it's about luxury, then why just gold and silk? What about platinum, or diamonds, or, a multi-million-dollar watch? Those things are way more extravagant, but you don't hear about a ban on them for men.
And that brings us to the final question the source leaves us to think about. It really ties everything we've talked about together. When you consider everything the Quran says about what's allowed, and those super serious warnings against adding new rules, would a prophet of God really forbid something that his Lord hadn't? That's a powerful thought to end on.